What's up guys, just Josh here. Welcome to a video that I've been looking forward to for some time now. This is the updated Machine Head album ranking. So I did my original ranking the day after I listened to all of their albums in a row for the first time. So obviously now that these albums have had a few months to really set in and really grow on me and I've become a really big Machine Head fan, my ranking is a lot different. So without wasting any further time, let's get into the ranking. At number 9, we have 2001 Supercharger, Machine Head's 4th album, and my least favorite album of theirs. Now, I don't hate this album. In fact, I don't really even hate any album on this list. I think all of their albums are good, but there's the ones that are good, and there's the ones that are great. And Supercharger is just sort of good. You know, it's not a very cohesive album in my opinion. I think for every good song, there's an equally mediocre song, a song that just falls flat. But my favorite tracks on this album are Bulldozer, Crashing Around You, All in Your Head, Nausea, Trephination, and especially Deafening Silence. That's probably my favorite song on this whole album. Deafening Silence is just amazing. Definitely recommend all of those. But the songs White Knuckle Blackout, Kick You When You're Down, Only the Names, and the title track, they fall a bit flat. They're not bad, but there's certain parts of them that just derail the whole song. And White Knuckle Blackout, it's got a great, very awesome, groovy main riff, pretty catchy chorus, but near the second half of this song, they just go into this weird rap section that's very obnoxious, very juvenile, very unnecessary. And it just kills the whole vibe. Kick You When You're Down's not a bad song, but the chorus is just very cheesy and very corny. Only the Names is okay, but its length makes it a bit boring. And I'm not even going to talk about the tracks American High and Blank Generation. Those are two of the worst Machine Head songs ever. I really don't know what they were thinking with those two. And Supercharger is kind of a lackluster title track, not really a good closer. So yeah, I don't hate this album at all, but it's definitely not one of my favorites. Alright, at number 8, my second least favorite Machine Head album is their most recent album released in 2018, their 9th album. Man, if you watched my original ranking, I ripped this album a new asshole. And that was before I gave it a fair chance. And I was really going along with the whole shitstorm that this album was getting. But it's grown on me a lot. Even though it's so low in the list, it's one of my favorites. As weird as that sounds. But there's 5 songs on this album that definitely warrant it being this low. And those 5 songs are California Bleeding, Bastards, Grind You Down, Razorblade Smile, and Eulogy. So, some of those songs are decent. I think Grind You Down is definitely the best out of those 5. But California Bleeding, oh my god. Lyrically, that song is a disaster. Very, very childish lyrics, and it's a great track instrumentally, but lyrically I think it's very, very juvenile and very immature for a 51-year-old Rob Flynn at the time. So, and Bastards is like a folk song, basically about how Rob sat his kids down on the day of the 2016 election and basically went on a tirade about Donald Trump and said, oh, sometimes the bad guys win. Yeah, I really don't need to say any more about that track. Grind You Down is an okay song, but I really don't like how it blatantly rips off No Life by Slipknot. If you just listen to the choruses of both of those songs, you know what I'm talking about. Razorblade Smile, again, killer instrumental but horrible lyrics, and Eulogy is just a reprise of Bastards, but it's way more slow and drony and very boring. But there are definitely some hidden gems on this album and some killer tracks, such as Volatile, the title track. Beyond the Pale is okay. Triple Beam's alright. Kaleidoscope is really good. Hope Begets Hope is another one of my favorites. Screaming at the Sun is alright. Behind the Mask is a very, very underrated song. Heavy Lies the Crown is a good song, but I just wouldn't have it be 9 minutes. And Psychotic is another okay one as well. So, oddly enough, one of my favorites, but also one of my least favorites because those 5 songs. I always skip them. And at number 7, we have Machine Head's 8th album, released in 2014, Bloodstone Diamonds. Now, this is the black sheep of Machine Head's discography for me. I really never got into this album. I've only listened to it about 4 or 5 times. It's not a bad album, but it never really grew on me. But that's not to say that it doesn't have amazing tracks, because it does. Such as Now We Die, Killers and Kings, Ghosts Will Haunt My Bones, Night of Long Knives, Eyes of the Dead, Beneath the Silt, Damage Inside, Game Over, and Take Me Through the Fire. But songs like Sail Into the Black, In Comes the Flood, Imaginal Cells, kinda, I don't know, there's something about them I just don't like. But other than those tracks, this album is pretty good. It's a very solid album, but it just doesn't grab me like the rest of their albums do. And at number 6, we got Machine Head's 5th album, Through the Ashes of Empires, released in 2003. This was Machine Head's make or break album. This was the album that would decide whether or not Machine Head would even continue as a band. After the commercial failure of Supercharger, they were dropped from their label Roadrunner Records, and they were unsigned for quite a while. The labels that told them, hey, just leave Roadrunner and we'll sign you, they didn't fulfill their promise. So Machine Head would eventually get signed to Roadrunner United Kingdom, or Roadrunner Europe, I believe. And then they would release this album in every country except the United States. And then once Roadrunner US got wind of how amazing this album was, they were re-signed to Roadrunner. So this album, I would put it at the middle of their discography. It's not a bad album by any means. It's a very good album, but it's not as great as some of the other albums that we're about to get into. But my favorite tracks on this album are Imperium, Bite the Bullet, Left Unfinished, In the Presence of My Enemies, Days Turn Blue to Gray, Seasons Wither, All Falls Down, and Descend, The Shades of Night. Those are very, very amazing tracks. And the tracks that I didn't mention, Elegy, Vim, Wipe the Tears, they're good tracks, but I really don't like them as much as I like the other songs on this album. And here's where things might start to get controversial. At number 5, we have Unto the Locust, Machine Head's 7th album, released in 2011. This was number 2 in my original ranking, but I decided to drop it down to number 5 because I don't listen to this album too often, and when I do, I usually skip 1 or 2 songs, and those 2 songs are Darkness Within and Who We Are. Now, I know, that's crazy. I skipped Darkness Within because it's one of Machine Head's most popular songs, but I don't really like the intro too much. It's a bit cheesy and a bit corny in my opinion. Sometimes I'll sit through it because other than that, it's a very powerful song about how Rob Flynn chooses music as his god instead of a traditional religious god, and it's also about how music brings us together, gets us through dark times, and it's a very powerful song, but like I said, most of the time I don't really want to sit through the intro. But usually I just skip the intro. But the closing song, Who We Are, I usually skip the whole song because it's not a very memorable track in my opinion. Not a very good closer, but the other 5 tracks on this album are absolutely killer. I Am Hell, Be Still and Know, Locust, This Is the End, and pearls before the swine. This is perhaps one of Machine Head's heaviest and thrashiest albums. The production is a bit loud, but that's neither here nor there. Very good album, just one that I don't listen to too much. At number 4, we have Machine Head's second album, released in 1997, The More Things Change. Now this album is, surprisingly enough, an album that doesn't really get a lot of love across the board from Machine Head fans, which is mind-boggling to me that some people shit on this album, because, I mean, yes, it's not as good as Burn My Eyes, but it's definitely the next best thing. There's only 2 tracks on this album that I don't particularly enjoy, and those 2 tracks are The Frontlines and Violate. The Frontlines has this main riff that they repeat over and over again that just gets obnoxious as the track rolls on, and then Violate is a bit too long at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Those tracks aren't bad, they're not bad enough to be skippable. Sometimes I skip the Frontlines, and yeah, sometimes I do skip Violate as well, but most of the time, I mean, I'm able to sit through them. But the other 8 tracks on this album, 10 Ton Hammer, Take My Scars, Struck a Nerve, Down to None, Spine, Bay of Pigs, Blistering, and Blood of the Zodiac. Killer tracks. This album is just amazing. Definitely one of my favorites. And at number 3, we have Machine Head's debut album, Burn My Eyes, released in 1994. Make no mistake, this is one of the best debut albums in metal history, hands down. From the opening drum fill in Davidian that just kicks you right in the face, you know that you are in for something absolutely crushing. And crushing this album is. With bangers such as Davidian, Old, 1,000 Lies, None But My Own, The Rage to Overcome, Death Church, A Nation on Fire, Blood for Blood, and Block. And there's really not a bad song on this album. The only song I'm not too big on is I'm Your God Now, but that's not a bad song. And then, I don't really know if I would count Real Eyes, Realize, Real Lies as an actual song. It's more of a set piece, more of a transitional track, more of an interlude to Block, but it's not really my thing. It's kind of got this kind of groovy riff with this drum beat over some, I guess, news shows talking about gangs and police and all that. Not really my thing. Sometimes I just skip it to get to Block, because Block is a killer song. But definitely one of Machine Head's best albums, for sure. And here's another controversial pick, for sure. But at number 2, my second favorite Machine Head album of all time is The Burning Red. Out of all of their albums, this is the one that grew on me the most. It was number 7 in my original ranking. But yeah, this is my second favorite now, because I just connect with this album a lot. I think that it's a very just dark and personal and very honest album. And I really dig that in bands that just make these amazing albums. They just bleed. They leave it all on the table, and it's just absolutely killer. This was the album that got the band a lot of shit because they apparently jumped on the nu metal train, but I really don't agree with that. There's less than 3 minutes of rapping on this album in songs like Desire to Fire and From This Day. Other than that, there is some hip-hop influence. Obviously, Machine Head has always had hip-hop influence. But yeah, I don't agree with the general consensus that this is a nu metal album. This is a lot heavier than most nu metal out there. But anyways, my favorite tracks are Nothing Left, The Blood, the Sweat, the Tears, Silver, From This Day, Exhale the Vial, their cover of Police's Message in a Bottle, 5, and the title track, The Burning Red. Holy shit, that song is amazing. Definitely check out the title track if you haven't already. It's so fucking beautiful. But anyways, the only 2 songs I'm not too big on are Devil with the King's Card and I Defy. Not bad songs, but they're kind of filler in my opinion. But still, pretty good songs, and this album is my second favorite. This should come as no surprise to most Machine Head fans, but at number 1, we have the Blackening. Released in 2007, Machine Head's 6th album is truly, in my opinion, their best work to date, their masterpiece, their magnum opus. Since this album came out, they have not topped it, in my opinion. Unto the Locust came close, but Bloodstone Diamonds and Catharsis definitely failed to measure up to this amazing album. This is the perfect balance of beautiful melody and crushing heaviness. With 8 songs, 61 minutes, and 2 of those 8 songs are 10 minutes. 2 of those 8 songs are 9 minutes, and then the other 4 range from 4 to 6 minutes. So the track list is as follows: Clenching, The Fists of Dissent, Beautiful Morning, Aesthetics of Hate, Now I Lay Thee Down, Slanders, Halo, Wolves, and A Farewell to Arms. There's only one song on this album that I'm not too big on, and that song is Wolves. I don't really think that it needed to be 9 minutes. They could have shortened it a bit. But the solos in that song are amazing, and the outro is actually pretty freaking cool too. But yeah, not a bad song on this album for sure. But I first heard Machine Head with Beautiful Morning on Guitar Hero Metallica. It was in the guest set list on that game, and I just forgot about that song for many years until a few years ago. I re-listened to Beautiful Morning, and then I bought the song on iTunes, listened to that for a while until March of this year when I was on vacation. I just decided, fuck it, why not listen to the whole album? And holy shit, I'm glad I did. I was absolutely blown away by how amazing this album was. Listened to the rest of their albums, and now I'm a huge Machine Head fan. So yeah guys, there you have it. That's my ranking. Please let me know what your ranking is of Machine Head's albums down in the comments section below. I plan on getting more ranking videos out for you guys. I'm thinking of doing Stained, Killswitch Engaged, Whitechapel, that kind of thing. So if you guys want to see that, please leave a like on this video. Thank you guys for watching, and peace out.